You literally just officially started the podcast. That's the first thing I'm going to do. That's the cold open right there.
Yeah. Celine burps. Sweet.
Well, welcome
to
another episode of
As
Woo. As
You.
Wow. Hi with
Laurel Hill.
Sorry.
You looked at me.
You
like
ruined the surprise, Celine.
something.
We've been talking. It was just a thing.
Yeah, that's okay.
Usually we say with Celine
and Jeremiah.
and then
Me.
But now everyone knows.
Well, should I go?
Yeah, you should leave.
Okay. See you later.
Well, this is exciting. So this is completely just something that happened in the past couple days.
Yep.
We have another guest, our third guest, Laurel Hill.
Hi.
And Laurel and I got connected through Instagram through a mutual person who you guys live in Missoula.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Laurel does, drum roll please,
Human Design readings.
Yeah. So my friend told me that you do the Human Design readings, and I was like, and that we should connect. And I was like, that's a great idea. We should totally do that.
See if you want to be on the podcast.
Yeah. And Celine and I were talking about it, and we both don't know a lot about
not that much
design.
about it.
So that's why you're here.
Yeah.
Because we want to know more, and we want to know more about you. And I mean, I've heard a lot about Human Design. Our friends introduced us to Human Design not too long ago. And so...
Yeah. I just very lightly dipped the toe.
Ditto.
Yeah.
They took a course.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
With, I don't know who.
That's a good... We should have found that out.
The guy. With the guy.
Yeah. With a guy?
With the guy.
Not the dude.
Wasn't it with the
No,
dude?
he's dead.
No.
He's dead.
It was some guy. I was actually going to take... It was a 2-day thing sometime in March, and then I just didn't get it together. If I'm being honest.
Well, I mean, the beautiful thing about Human Design is that you really, you could take a little brief course and have, a pretty good understanding of your own personal chart, the key ingredients that you need, but then you could also, study it for the rest of your life and just go, deeper and deeper and deeper and...
So is there, a book? Do you have a book?
Well, I mean, there is a book that's, a textbook, and I wish there were more really good books. There are several. The best one is the main one. I think it's called Human Design, The Science of Differentiation, and it's actually by the main guy who brought the system in. His name is Ra Uru Hu, not the name he was born with. Could you have guessed?
Well, I don't know, actually. Could go either
Celine
way.
knows some interesting people.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Okay. So, tell us about how you got into it.
I think it was actually a couple years ago. Do you guys know Lacey Phillips, who does the manifestation
The
work?
Expanding podcast.
Yes. So she started raving about Jenna Zoe and Human Design, and I was like, okay, I love everything woo, and I love any kind of deeper, any deeper way of getting to know yourself and how you move in the world. So I was like, okay, Human Design, what is this? And I found out I was a projector and, really started getting into the nitty gritty of what that means. And we're kind of oddballs in society.
The projector
currently. Yes.
People.
It's really more of a generator world that we live in right now. I mean, which is amazing. You guys are generators. You literally power the world. Projectors don't. Okay, pause.
We need to back up.
Okay.
Because there's some people on this episode right now who are like, what
the hell is happening?
The fuck are you talking about? So I think we both definitely want to know more about your path, but if you could, just for the lay person, someone like your mom, because my mom's listening to it, my dad's listening to it.
Me too.
My sister's listening to it. There are a bunch of people they're like, I don't know what human design is.
Right.
Can someone please explain that for me?
Perfect. So, again, the more I learn about human design, the more I'm like, how the hell can you like squish this into like a tiny elevator pitch? But like the standard description would be that it is a system that combines elements of astrology, the I Ching, Kabbalah, the chakra system, quantum physics, biochemistry, genetics, and it kind of gives you this map of your own personal energetics and like the way you move through the world. So you can kind of like see, okay, like this is who I am and this is what I'm good at. And the reason that I do these things actually makes perfect sense, even though, you know, your conditioning or society might tell you that that's not the right way. But whatever feels like innately correct for you is actually exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And my dad actually came up with the best explanation that I've heard because I'm from Georgia, and, you know, in his work, he deals with some more conservative Georgia people. And I think he was probably like, okay, like, how am I going to describe what my child does to other people? And he was like, so basically it like helps you get out of your own way. And I was like, yes, that's perfect. Totally is, a very concise way of putting it. Thanks, Dad.
I mean, I think it's a good follow-up because our last episode was with Leslie.
Right. Yeah,
the
she's
astrologer.
amazing.
And so we talked about astrology, birth charts, your design. And it seems like this is very much in that vein. Being a projector,
100%, yes.
being a manifester, maybe is almost akin to being like a Capricorn.
Yeah, I find that a lot of projectors are Aquarians, I find. Just a little pattern that pops up. But also during readings, people often will say like, oh, I just had a natal chart reading and this is like mirroring everything that was said in that chart reading, or even Akashic Records readings. I've had a lot of people who will have just had a reading and they're like, you're telling me all the exact same things, which is really cool because like all I have to do is just like look at this chart and like interpret it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
So that was a great explanation, by the way.
Definitely.
That was like perfect.
Thank you.
So it's kind of like now I'm not doing as good of a job of explaining it. But it's like not a modality, but it's like a personality matrix of personality matrices.
Kinda. Yeah, like there's two sides to the chart. Actually, there's like a personality side and then more of a quote design side where it's like more deeply embedded in your body and you might not even be aware of things that you're doing. Whereas you're going to be more aware of the things on your personality side, but they're both like super important, which is why I really like this. Like Enneagram, I think is really cool, but I love, or, you know, Myers-Briggs. It's like similar to that, except for in those modalities, you're like going, you know, your answers or whatever type you are is based on like your own answers of like who you think you are. And this is really just like, okay, this is actually who you are. Like, and it usually lines up.
Yeah.
But I like that it, you know, works like that.
So are there like, you know, within, let's say astrology or Myers-Briggs, you know, there's like 12 different kind of archetypes, personality types.
Sure.
Does this system follow that too? Or are there like, you know?
Yeah, there are 4 main types. This is actually a bit of a controversy in the human design world.
Let's talk about it.
There are, so Ra, the guy who he actually channeled all this information.
Yeah, can you explain that? Because I read about that in the 70s, right?
87. 1987.
Does he also have books?
He
The
wrote,
raw material?
No, that's different. That's the law of one.
Oh my God, I almost lost my mind.
I know. No, there's like a lot. The more I get into this. In fact,
I have to. No. Just like a side note.
Yeah.
When Laurel and I were on Instagram, you know, I told her about the podcast. She's like, okay, let me check you out. There's like this weirdo just like, you know, messaging me on Instagram. Yeah. And then she saw, you know, she started listening to our first episode and she was like really digging the first episode. Honestly, like the fact that you tag Bashar in the episode was like the selling point. And I was like, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
He's my guy.
love Bashar. Yeah.
So yeah, well, we could talk about that, but for those people who don't know, Bashar, I think we've mentioned it before, but
Yes.
Bashar is someone who has
He's an
been
alien.
channeled
Yes.
by
He's an alien.
Daryl
Yeah.
Hannah. So anyway, but let's
sorry.
go back to
Okay.
Ra. Let's go back to another channel.
Okay, so Ra downloaded this information in 1987. He basically was already kind of living this like weird life in Ibiza. And of course, right?
Perfect.
So he comes back to this like actual ruin that he lives in. And, you know, there's like a light on under his door that is locked. And he has the only key that's like this, you know, ancient like key from like the 1800s or whatever. So he's like, okay, obviously I'm the only one who can get in here. What's going on? I don't have any kerosene for my lamp and there's a light. So he walks in and there is this voice and I mean, there's like actually a lot. Gosh, I don't even know where to go from here. But okay, make it short. The voice was like, are you ready to work? And for the next 8 days, he basically had this encounter with this, something that like transmitted this information like into his body. So, you know, thereafter, it's not like he just like learned it all at once. It sort of like became a part of him, which is why he was able to continue transmitting this information. But, and this is where I kind of like lost my shit this week when I heard about it. So he describes the voice as like a 155-year-old cigar smoking woman, and which just happens to be the interval of time since Helena Blavatsky died. Like, are you guys familiar with the
No.
Theosophical Society?
No.
Okay, well, it was this. You should do an episode about this. It's fascinating.
Okay.
Anyway, it was a big thing, like a sort of esoteric society back in, I guess it would have been, well, I don't know, what's 1987 minus 150, like early 1800s.
Yeah, 1832.
Maybe. I'm not very good at math.
She's like this wild, I mean, her mythology is just bananas, but just the fact that like when I made that connection, I was like, oh, holy shit.
It's
And then
her.
there was someone else on the internet who, like, I think someone posted about it in a Human Design Facebook group I'm in, where they were like, someone says that Ra is the reincarnation of one of the founding members of the Theosophical Society, which, I mean, this is not going to
Cool.
be very impressive to you if you like aren't, you know, geeking
No.
out.
It's
But
not impressive.
okay. Thank you.
It's interesting.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
So
Okay.
he basically in 8 days channeled this information.
Yes. Yeah. And then kind of sat on it for a while because he was like, people are going to think I'm like batshit crazy. I don't really want to be the person to bring this into the world. And then slowly was like, I'm going
And he's
to do it.
not alive anymore.
No, unfortunately, he is not
He's
alive.
not alive. Okay.
No.
When did he pass? Do you know?
Oh, gosh. You know, I should know this, and I actually don't.
Oh, okay.
I think sometime in the, it could have been like 2010.
Oh, so pretty recently.
Yeah, not
So
too
this is
long
like
ago.
sort of from the he got all this information in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
Right?
1980. Like it was January 1987 is when it came in. Cool. And there was something happening at the same time. I mean, there was like so many crazy synchronicities and like
Yeah.
deeper little parts of this information. But yeah,
Huh.
basically
Okay.
8 days.
I kind of
Oh, he passed away March 12th, 2011 in Ibiza.
Yeah, of course.
I love that he's like from Ibiza.
Yeah. Well, he actually, I think, is Canadian.
Of course he's
Which
Canadian.
I could be, again, I could completely be wrong on that count. But, or maybe American, but I feel like Canadian. And he was, I think, just kind of a normal dude. And then he was like, fuck all this. I'm going to Ibiza.
And like learning about
Nice.
Yeah.
the human design.
Yeah.
That's really
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
It is very cool.
So, and now you got into it, like you said, a couple years ago.
Yes. Yeah, through Lacey Phillips, talking about Jenna Zoe. And then when I learned I was a projector and kind of was also going through this thing where it was like, I make jewelry as well.
Mhm.
And, you know, really love it, but also was getting to the point where it's like totally burning me out, like over and over and over and over again, like constant adrenal fatigue and stress and just like
Wow.
wasn't working. And I was like, oh my God, being a projector, like this totally makes sense. I started like applying into my own life and like everything changed, you know, it's like such a cliche where it's like, oh my God, everything just like started flowing. And
I mean, it's pretty cool.
That is cool.
It's pretty
You could, cliche or not, it's fucking awesome.
yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and it certainly hasn't been like completely easy the whole time. Like there's a lot of, it's difficult to like give up, you know, what you think you know and to try and live in a new, you know, quote, more aligned way. But shit, it works. So
wow.
Yep, here we are.
And so now you teach and you give readings, or are you?
I actually do want to do workshops soon.
Okay.
But right now I just do readings, like
do
kind of like basic foundational, you know.
And so what like information do you need from the person to do a reading?
Exactly the same as a natal chart reading for astrology. So where you're born, your birth date, and then your exact time of birth, like the closer you can get. Because it's not just, you know, in astrology, you can kind of, there's a little more wiggle room than human design, where there's like a bunch of stuff like underneath these layers that you really want to be as accurate as possible. I mean, you could still get really amazing information if you have it like fairly close. Yeah.
You're talking like literally minutes.
Minutes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
So I haven't seen, I saw one chart.
I was going to say I can pull up my chart, but I don't know what's going to come up. But before we talk about the charts, well, maybe it's time to bring up the charts. I mean, I want to talk about the archetypes.
Yeah.
You know,
just to be like,
I'll pull it up.
What does that look like?
What do the different types look like?
Yeah,
Or-
because I don't really have any info on it besides like, I think I'm a manifesting generator, which
Which is amazing.
I don't even know
Like
what that
an
Energizer
Energizer bunny.
An energizer? I don't know.
I mean, you can be. So you're actually a manifesting generator is kind of where that like controversy I was talking about earlier comes in, because some people say that there are 5 types and manifesting generators being like their own separate thing, and some people, including Ra, are like very clear about there only being 4 types, and like you're a type of generator. Certainly with like, you know, your own energetic differences, but I mean every single person in the world is like, you know, so different from everyone else.
So wait, when is your actual birth date?
Mine?
Yeah.
February 12th.
So you are an Aquarius.
I am an Aquarius.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you find that a lot of Aquariuses are projectors.
Yeah, I think every single
I wonder
Aquarius
if there's
I've
like
read
a
for
like
has been a projector. Which is, you know, could just be a really insane coincidence.
yeah, or not.
I don't know. What are you? Oh, you're a Capricorn.
I'm a Capricorn.
Okay. I think I only notice when I read for Aquarians because it's like my own.
Yeah. So this, you pulled up your chart.
I pulled up my chart.
Okay.
But so if we could just do the overview. So there are 4
Yes. Okay, so we'll
types.
start with manifestors, because they're really the only type that are here to like initiate new things, to bring new things into the world, which sounds crazy when you first hear it.
No,
but,
not at all. I'm like, I'm with you.
Okay,
Go on.
perfect.
Totally.
So they can like think about something and just be like, okay, I'm gonna like bring this thing into the world and like really make it happen and get it going. That's not to say that like we all can't do that. But like, for example, with this business I started, like when I was kind of just sitting back and letting everything flow, it was all really easy. But then as soon as I started to be like, oh my God, okay, this is my career, I'm going to like start building it up. Like it really started to become like a massive, massive struggle. Like it was still a success technically, but I was like in hell. So, you know,
Wow.
it's like we can make other stuff happen. We can embody like any of these energetics. It's just like our human design chart can tell us where we actually can flow versus struggling.
Yeah.
And even if you're doing something you think you want to do, like make jewelry, for example, you know, maybe it's a clue if you're struggling that that's not actually what you want to do. So, you know, then you have to like let that go, which is its own horrible, terrifying thing. But once you get
That's
over
intense.
that, you know,
Yeah.
you can move into this like amazing space of synchronicity and magic, and stuff actually just does like kind of flow. It's great. I mean, that's kind of how I ended up here. It's how I ended up at Maha Rose. Like, it's crazy. It just happened.
So interesting.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So no, that's okay. So those are manifestors, people who are here to create things.
Yes,
on
yeah,
this
they
planet.
really can like bring things into reality. And again, with the manifesting piece, just the language of this, like we can all manifest, shit into our lives.
Right. Does it mean that if you're not that, you're
That's
not a
kind of like a
manifestor?
different
Just because you're not a
thing.
manifestor doesn't mean you can't make an omelet.
Yes, absolutely. Well put. And then
You're so proud of yourself.
I thought of it.
Oh my God.
So generators really are here to use this like powerful sacral energy center that you have, where you can like work really all day long as long as you're doing something that lights you up, that you really love doing and you feel really satisfied by what you're doing. Whereas the rest of us, we can work in spurts and then we need like a ton of rest. But as generators, you have this like motor that as long as you're using it to respond to the world around you, it's going to be like a really visceral yes or no response. And as long as you're following that, like, for the podcast, maybe you guys like, I don't know, we're listening to a podcast or I don't know, in some way, you felt this like response in your body, like, yes, like that's amazing. So, then that was kind of your cue to like go out and start working on this podcast versus just like sitting around.
Right. Because I think we had said it, but Celine and I are both manifesting generators.
I don't remember, to be honest.
Right.
I want to say yes, though. Let's say yes for the sake of.
So that's like this combo.
Yeah,
personality
a
type,
bit
which
of a combo.
is the
you were saying it's a
controversial
little
one.
controversial. Wait, but before, okay, and then what are the other two?
Okay, so there's projectors, which is me, which
They sound fun.
They're.
It sounds like a fun one. I'm like, I kind of wish I was.
Isn't Obama a projector?
Obama is a projector.
I heard about that. Yeah.
How did you know that? Oh, Barry, I miss him so much.
I think I heard it. I don't know. Maybe it was the Lacey Phillips podcast. I don't remember.
Okay, so he's a projector.
Yeah, so projectors are really good at like having this like special niche where they can really like see into a system, or especially can be good at like seeing into the energetics of other people and how other people work and how things can be more efficient. Just being really good at being like leaders and guides, as far as they even would make like a good CEO where they can just kind of like or a president where I don't know, I feel like that was like way too much work for a projector to be doing.
For Barack?
Yeah, well, just when you look at like pictures of him at like the beginning and at the end, it's like, oh man, you just like ran yourself into the ground, which is kind of what projectors do in this world. Which
interesting. I was talking to myself.
Oh, okay, cool.
What did you say?
Nothing.
You need me to edit that out?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so projectors are prone to kind of running themselves into the ground.
Yeah, because we really are conditioned to be in this world where we're supposed to like go after everything that we want. And there's like a lot of other potentially open centers that can cause that to be exacerbated, where we're trying to like just do what we can't do and be who we're not, and like work to prove our value, even though we really aren't here to be able to work 8-hour days, which, can be like, my husband is a manifesting generator and I'm a projector, and he definitely makes jokes all the time about like me being tired after like 2 hours of work. And he's like, oh, because you're a projector. like I can get out of doing shit because I don't have enough energy.
That's really funny.
But he actually has this like the super powered, like very manifesting generator channel, which chances are y'all might as well. But it is very much like a channel of busyness. And then I have this like, I just need to chill all the time. So it's a funny dynamic.
Cool.
I love hanging out, though.
Yeah, I think everyone should. I'm glad that you embrace that.
I love alone time, too.
Yeah. Oh,
just
yeah.
Hanging.
It's probably in your chart.
That's good.
Okay, so, manifestor, projector,
generator, including manifesting generator.
Okay.
And then reflectors, which are the rare type. There's only, I'm sure I've met more, but I've only officially met like one reflector ever.
Wow.
And they are really the people who are, it's kind of like what they sound like. They are completely open in their body graph, and they really kind of reflect the world around them. So it's going to be really important for them to be in a place that like kind of makes them feel like the best versions of themselves.
Okay.
And they can kind of like be a barometer for how everything is going, because they are reflecting their community.
So you've only really met one?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're super rare.
Interesting. So I'm actually a little confused about the difference between a manifestor and a generator.
So the manifestor can bring things into reality just like, thinking about something that they want to do. And it is, or not even actually, I shouldn't even say it like that. It's really more of just like a feeling or something that just like pops out of their mouth and they're like, I have to do this thing. Like, this is what I'm doing. And like bringing that into the world, like without having any sort of reaction to the outside world. Whereas a generator, like it has a more like warm enveloping aura where you're kind of like bringing everything into you. And this response mechanism is like your body's almost like armor, where instead of like agreeing to everything or like overworking yourself, like you're being really selective about what it is that you're responding to. So whatever it is that you feel your gut being like, yes, this, like, no, that, that is what you're going to follow versus just being like, letting your mind be like, Jeremiah, you should do this, or like, Celine, you should definitely do this today because of like A, B, C, D, E, whatever. Being like, well, what does my body feel like about that?
When you're talking about that, what do you mean? Like, is that part, like, looking at this chart, you have your inner authority, which is for Jeremiah, it's emotional solar plexus.
Okay,
so is that what you mean when you're like, and then your response system?
So for generators, you all have this sacral, like, gut response, like a very visceral, like, they describe it as like an or like noises, like where they're actually like guttural sounds, if you feel like you make those. But often manifesting generators, that's not across the board, but you might feel your body like being drawn to something or like repelled by something, or just kind of like an excited feeling in your body. So you're always going to want to listen to your gut. And then for you, you have another layer, and potentially you too, if you have emotional authority on top of that, you're going to want to, like, instead of acting immediately, take it through this emotional wave that you're always creating, where you might wake up one day feeling like super great, and you might wake up another day feeling just kind of shitty. And instead of like applying any sort of value to that, or thinking that there's something wrong or that you have to like pull yourself out of it, just being like, that's fine. I'm going to like wear comfy clothes today and maybe just watch Netflix and like do whatever feels good. And really like letting yourself like sink into all those highs and the lows. But before you make a big decision, you're going to want to like sit with it for a minute and take it through that wave and come to a place of clarity, or at least feeling like less nervous about something.
And that's a manifesting generator thing, or are you literally looking at my chart right now and just telling me
that's an emotional authority thing.
Okay.
So there's two parts, basically. Like, again, you could go into your human design chart like for the rest of your life and dig so deep and keep going. But if you master two pieces, basically everything else falls into place. And the first is the strategy, which as generators, it's going to be wait to respond instead of going out and trying to like make shit happen, like struggling to like use your energy for things that don't light you up or out of obligation. I mean, and of course, as humans, like we all have to do that occasionally. But for the most part, you want to be like really satisfied with what you're doing and wait to respond versus like going out there and trying to make stuff happen. Okay. And then the authority is how you make decisions. So for you with emotional authority, you're going to want to like take it through that wave.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You guys got it?
Kinda.
So when so let's say you're doing a reading. So you get their birth chart, you run it through this like website, so anyone can go on to the Jovian Archive website. Yeah,
Jovian Archive, mybodygraph.com. Those are good ones.
Okay, and so that, just like a natal chart, it'll
generate.
You pop the stuff in, it comes out with your chart.
Yeah.
And then now you'll take the chart, and so there's a few different things that pops out of there, right? So there's the type.
Yes.
There's the way to respond.
Yeah, so the type and the strategy are basically going to be the same thing. Like the aura type like tells you what your strategy is. Okay. And then for some people, like for some generators, it's kind of almost the same thing because their authority is also that sacral center. But, typically there's going to be some kind of other layer on top of that to take into account. Like for you, you're on a way to respond, and then and for the big stuff, it's like, okay, am I going to take another job? Am I going to move to this apartment? Take that through your emotional wave.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Because
I guess I'm curious to know, and it might be like very complex to explain, but like the sacral, is it based on the chakras? And so like, are you saying that the kind of, or in this thing, like the manifester is based in like more of a sacral or like a root energy, and that kind of comes out with that plan? So I'm trying to figure out.
I know it's
where everything.
It's pretty complicated.
I know,
yeah.
but you know, like what it's based on a million things, right? So
It's well.
Is this too hard to explain?
No,
you can edit
no,
this
definitely not. So with a generator, basically, if you're a generator or a manifesting generator, you're always going to have this sacral center.
So what's like a projector?
So a projector, everyone else, like you don't have the sacral center, and then you don't have a motor connected to the throat.
What about like a reflector?
A reflector doesn't have any definition at all. Like it'll have like gates activated, so it'll have like little lines coming out of those centers, but it's going to be all white centers. So no consistent energy.
Right, so that's different than chakras, because everyone, according to the chakra system, has a sacral center. And
well, sure. It's just that
the gates are like little energy centers. Oh, we're overwhelmed.
No, this is good.
So, okay, yeah, we probably could turn this into like a 10-hour class. Okay, so the centers, you have 9 centers in your body graph.
Great.
And according to Ra, we did, I think it was like in 1781 or something, we did become a 9-centered being versus a 7-centered being. Okay. I don't think that means that the chakras no longer apply. Because, I think we can all feel those energies within us.
Sure.
But, now there's like a couple more layers to that. So we have the 9 centers, which mostly correspond to the chakras and is also, biological functions within our body. And then in those centers, we have scattered around the 64 gates, which correspond to the 64 energies described in the I Ching, which is so interesting to me also that like the I Ching is like one of the most ancient texts known to man. And then, science has also discovered that there are like 64 codons of your DNA, and it's like just all this stuff.
It can get pretty wacky.
Pretty wacky.
Pretty wacky.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cool. So that's great.
Yeah, that's very helpful for me.
Okay, good.
So we have
as a Capricorn, I'm like, give me the D.
Why?
Give me the D.
I would also guess you might have like a 1 in your profile somewhere.
Okay, so we have these 9 centers. We have 64 gates. What are there any other kind of numeric rubric?
Sure.
Aspects?
There are 36 channels that can be activated within your chart. Like if 2 harmonic gates are activated by the planetary neutrinos as they code your body, then it really makes more like, it's not like there's an actual like physical channel there. It's really more of like a quantum energetic that like pops out because you have these like gates kind of across from each other in these centers. Okay. Which again, like all of this is very hard to describe without like plenty of visuals. But
well, I mean, I think it's really interesting because it sounds so much like it's found a way to combine so much of chakra stuff, astrology, and then a lot of like esoteric quantum.
Oh my God. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
super
and it's really interesting because I've been reading this esoteric acupuncture book.
Oh.
Yeah. And it talks a lot about just the different acupuncture points and that correlating to like opening up these energetic centers that correlate to like your blueprint and your kind of astral planes and different like energy centers. Amazing. So it's not too complicated.
Okay.
It is making sense. I think it's just very complicated, and so I'm trying to like break it down for people because I think what we're doing is we're going like up and like seeing kind of a larger perspective, and then we're diving really deep into something. So I'm trying to like.
Well, I think the explaining the kind of just basic 9 centers, 64, like that for me was the money moment.
Okay, cool.
So 9 centers, 64 gates, 36 channels.
Yeah.
36 chambers. It's like Wu-Tang. Is there anything else like...
Yes.
You're doing a really good job.
Yeah, you're doing great.
I know it's overwhelming because
it's a lot.
You know, it's explaining a mass instead of an individual.
Yeah,
chart,
yeah. It's definitely
complex.
Kind of a little bit of a different
vibe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I was like, is there other stuff?
She said, yes. It's very complicated.
And then you looked very overwhelmed.
I'm just trying to think of like where, like, you know, do I need to go there, or is that going to like complicate it too much? But I mean, that's really, you know, that's the gist. Like, that's the big stuff.
Yeah.
And in terms of like how all of these things, it was so great to hear like that, you know, the 64 gates, that's how it relates to the I Ching system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and then I guess the 9 centers is relatively related to the chakra
system. Yes.
Yeah, system.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are the 2 additional chakras that we gained in 1791?
So, well, I could just go over all of the centers if that would be helpful.
Is it similar to the chakra?
It kind of is. Yeah, it's very similar. But they're kind of like labeled differently.
Okay,
like,
go for
you know,
it.
we have a, and you can always cut this out if
No,
you're like,
no, do it. I think there's just a lot we want to talk about.
Oh,
so
totally.
But yeah, if you think that's going to be helpful, because I think
it's super helpful because you can like look at your chart and like pull it up, and you know, wherever you see like a white area or a colored in area, like you can definitely, you know, get a really good idea of, you know, just your energetics just based on that, like without even knowing like the gates or the channels, like what they actually are.
Right.
So basically we have 2 pressure centers. We have our crown and our root center, and the crown is like mental pressure to figure shit out. And the root center is physical pressure to get shit done. And it's more of like adrenalized pressure. Like it's definitely, you know, if you're like constantly stressing out your system, trying to get things done like faster and faster and faster, you're going to get adrenal fatigue. You're going to burn yourself out. So really just like understanding that if you have the center open, like, you know, feel the energy kind of like flow through you, but don't necessarily let it move your body without tuning into your strategy and your authority. You know, you kind of be like, okay, I feel like everyone else's like energy amplifying this like need to get everything done within me. It's like, oh my God, I gotta reply to all these emails like within 10 minutes of receiving them. Or, you know, like just asking yourself, like, does that actually need to happen? Is that actually important? Or am I just rushing to get something done? Whereas like immediately something is going to rush to fill its place. And then if you have that center defined, you want to make sure you're kind of like letting everyone else go at their own pace. And then as far as this mental pressure center, your crown, it's like the top triangle in the chart. If you have that defined, like that's great. You know, you have a really powerful mind, but like not letting your mind push your body around and really, again, tuning into your body. And then if it's open, just knowing that like this pressure to like figure stuff out is kind of not what you're here to do, which of course we all are trained to do this like from birth basically. Yeah. But you know, thinking about things that like don't matter is a big one. And just like even releasing the pressure on yourself to even know what the question is, like much less the answer. So, questions about that? I heard you inhale. Okay, you good?
So those are
those are 2.
Root and head.
Yes, opposite though. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what else?
And then we have 3 awareness centers. So we have the splenic center, which is like this very primitive survival awareness, like the kind of awareness where you're like walking along a trail and, you know, you see, well, actually you don't see, you just like jump in the air and like then you notice the snake on the ground, but your body has reacted before your mind even has any idea what's going on. So it's like kind of having this innate sense of safety and well-being in your environment if you have that center colored in. And if it's open, you know, you might not have quite as solid of like, you know, maybe you don't want to like climb the giant rocks by the ocean because you're afraid you're going to fall in, even though like clearly you're not. It's just sort of this little fear you have.
Little fear of death.
Yes, a little bit of a mild fear of death and safety. And And if it is open, flying on a plane is always really fun because you're just like taking in everyone's energy. Holding on to things that aren't good for you are a big one with this center, like kind of as a safety blanket. Especially a person with a defined spleen can feel like very like solid and safe, like even if they're like a total asshole potentially.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
great quality.
I know, amazing. So that's the splenic center. It's like, this survival intuitive awareness. And then we have our ajna center, which is our mind. And that's more like intellectual awareness of like the past, present, future, fuels anxiety. So again, if it's open, like you don't have to know the answer. You're not here to know the answer. You actually are here to have like a wide open mind. If you have the center open, you automatically also have an open crown.
Mm-hmm.
So like really embracing your open mind, embracing the fact that you can see things from every angle, from all sides. Even someone whose opinions you don't agree with, like you potentially have the ability to see, like, okay, I think that they're totally wrong, but I can also see where they're coming from, which is like a really beautiful quality to have.
I thought so. I was just looking at my own chart. I was like,
so yeah, you don't need to like get involved, in like Facebook debates. Like you can just kind of like,
nope, don't do that.
Nope, don't do that. Yeah, I feel you.
So those are two of the three.
Yeah, and then the third is the solar plexus center, which is the emotional wave, which is your emotional authority. So if you have that defined, it means you kind of do create your own emotional wave, regardless of what's going on in the world around you. Like, again, just waking up, feeling one way or the other, and really like letting yourself kind of ride that wave and cultivating like a deeper stillness, like underneath like the turbulence on the surface.
Okay.
Whereas someone who does not have that center defined is going to be more on an even keel and like affected by things coming in from the outside world, like making them happy or sad.
Okay.
And that certainly doesn't mean that they're not emotional, just that in general, they're not like, they don't just wake up sad for no reason or happy for no reason.
Okay.
And so there's a throat center, which is the center of communication, expression, manifestation. And if you have that center open, it's going to be really good to like not plan out what you're going to say. Like if you have to make a speech or a toast, just like letting yourself kind of like pop out with whatever needs to pop out in the moment is going to be really good. Not worrying about like trying to get attention and just accepting that like, being who you are or waiting for that invitation to speak, even if it's like an energetic invitation, like, okay, like now I feel like the time is right. And then you just kind of like pop out with something, but not letting yourself like overthink that.
Okay.
And there are actually kind of like two heart centers. There's your G center, which is your spiritual heart center of love and direction and purpose.
Selena's nodding her head.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is this related to I Ching at all?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I
I thought you were nodding your head in like acknowledgement.
Oh, yeah, here we go. I mean, I'm saying.
I thought like you knew.
No.
Okay.
So it does have a couple of, so that each, like within all of these centers, you'll see these like little numbers, and those numbers are basically the ones that correspond to the I Ching. So they all contain, like the I Ching's like that energy is throughout everyone's chart, basically.
Okay.
So the G center, it's going to be that like yellow or white diamond in the middle of your chart. And if that is open, then it means you can potentially like want to search for your sense of love or purpose and direction rather than trusting and surrendering that it will come to you. Like it can feel more like a struggle. So, the key for that one is really to tune into your environment and your community and really making sure that like you feel comfortable, like places that you exist in consistently, like your apartment, your job? Are you hanging out with people that make you feel like the best version of yourself and not trying to like struggle to fit in somewhere that like doesn't really feel that great to you, but maybe like your ego is like, oh, but like, you know, you want to be part of like this cool gang, but if like they don't make you feel good, like fuck it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, I think everyone can be a little bit susceptible to like all of these like, you know, lower and higher expressions of each center, but I think it can be, you know, more intense if you have this like open center. You're really like amplifying all of that pressure.
Right.
So by being in the right community, in the right environment, like where you do feel really comfortable, that's kind of like where everything's going to find you. And your other heart center is your center of, it's more your physical heart versus your spiritual heart. And it's like the center of ego and drive and willpower. And, you know, on the positive side of this, it's like the drive and the competition to like the space race, you know, being the first to land on the moon, or a
Who's
field
Tanner?
in Arizona.
Who is the tannist?
Who's the tannist?
I was saying is anyway.
I went to the beach yesterday.
And I'm jealous about it. It's a glow.
Oh, I was like, what are you talking about? Okay, cool.
Now you're part of the conversation.
So yeah, maybe you have an open ego center and you're like really feeling this like sense of competition.
Was that 7?
That's how many? Is
was
that
that all?
everyone?
No, I think I'm missing one. I think we have one more besides the ego center. Yeah, one more.
The sacral?
Yeah, we haven't done the sacral center yet.
Okay.
So if you have the open ego center, I feel like this is maybe one of like the biggest conditioning centers. Like you just want to make sure you're not like competing to prove yourself. You can just kind of like sit back and enjoy the show and not try and like overcommit to things that you actually don't really want to do.
Okay.
And then there is the sacral center, which is the generator motor. So if you have this defined, you're automatically a generator. And you really do have the ability to kind of like wake up every day with this like full battery. And really your job throughout the day is to respond to the world around you, do energy that really lights you up, that excites you. And you kind of go to bed at the end of the day like you just like exhausted. Not exhausted in a bad way. Don't overdo it. But yeah, feeling really satisfied about what you accomplished. And if you don't have this defined, which is like about 30% of people, you're taking on this energy, which can feel really good for a minute, but then you kind of like don't know when to let it go, and you kind of keep going and going. It's another potential area of burnout.
Okay.
So really, you know, as a projector, like that was huge for me, where I was constantly, like, I have an open ego center and I have an open sacral center, and I was constantly like, oh my God, what else can I do today to like prove that I am a worthy jewelry person? And, you know, it was a nightmare. So allowing yourself to rest, not doing is often better than doing, and just kind of like surrendering to your own process.
When you found this modality and this system, and then it resonated with you a lot, so does that mean that, like exactly what you're saying, like you decided to like take time to rest and like nurture yourself because you learned this aspect was, I'm a projector, I you know, I can't take a lot on.
Exactly. I mean, that definitely gave me permission to kind of be the way that felt good for me instead of like pushing.
Doing what you thought you needed to do.
I was also, my hobby was trail running, and I moved to Missoula and was suddenly surrounded by like world class, like ultra runners, like people who just like kill it in the mountains. Like, so like it was really fun, like running with them for just a second and trying to keep up with them. I mean, and I'm talking about like my like hard day was their easy day. So I like was definitely like not, you know, like part of the pack. But I was exhausted all the time, like completely fried.
Right.
I actually can't run anymore because I overdid it so hard. But yeah, I totally lost my train of thought, honestly.
Talking about how you use this in like your, this in your life,
yeah.
right?
Previously, if I felt really fatigued, I would be like, okay, well, obviously that means I need to like train harder and like condition my body. And, you know, then learning about all of this, it was like, no, you're like, you need to rest.
Yeah.
You're burning yourself out.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that, well, what I like about all of these modalities, and we've talked about this before, but like, and you had mentioned it as well in terms of like waking up and like being on an emotional wave, and instead of kind of internalizing it, like, oh, I'm sad. Oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm sad. I'm sad. It's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault.
Yeah.
Like taking these modalities and being like, oh, that's just like kind of the energetic pattern that I'm susceptible to or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
And like externalizing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful awareness. I think you can just like lean into it, accept it. It really is all about, like when I say it's actually an emerging awareness center. It's not quite there yet, but it's all about like spirit awareness. Because if you think about like spirituality, it's not like an intuitive survival awareness like the spleen or like an intellectual knowing like in the ajna. It's really like feeling. So that's kind of what the solar plexus is about. And if you have that defined, you're kind of here to like, start bringing that energy into the world.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, everyone is, honestly. But, like viewing the world through this emotional lens constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've been doing readings.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. It's great. It's like, it feels so good. Compared to, I mean, again, I love the jewelry that I make, but I can't do it anymore.
Right.
And this actually feels really good. It feels really aligned. It's just like me and someone else, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's no like million components to deal with, it's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Well, there's so much more. I mean,
what time are we at?
We're at 50. There's so much more I would love to learn. How can people learn more?
Do you have like a website?
Wow. I do have a website. It's laurelhillworkshop.com. And same on Instagram. And you can look up your chart at mybodygraph.com. And if you're super interested, I do recommend getting that main book by Ra Uru Hu. It is like a textbook, so it's like $50. I don't necessarily recommend going straight to his lectures just because, I mean, he's like an amazing genius, but the way he speaks about it is like it's like not the easiest way.
Inside baseball.
Yeah, like it's not super digestible for someone brand new to the system. I do really love like Jenna Zoe's stuff, and Erin Claire Jones is really good, and she's here in New York. But yeah, those are the people that I would check out.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll link that up. Well, this has been. I feel like some people are gonna be like, "What?"
I know.
It's not on you though.
No,
I think
no,
it's the human design system. I think is just super complicated.
Super complicated. Yeah.
And it sounds like it's like a lifelong learning.
Well, yes. I mean, it really is all about like the moment you enter the experiment of like paying attention to your strategy and your authority. Like that's kind of like when it begins. So I mean, you can start today.
Yeah.
But that's really it. That's all you need to master.
I mean, it's an exploration of self.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And the map. So it's kind of, I think it's wild.
It is wild.
It's cool though.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
in terms of like a daily practice, the one thing I was thinking of was just like, look at your chart. Check it out if you're interested. I mean, obviously, if you're not interested, don't. But if you are, check it out and check out those resources that Laurel recommended.
yeah, get a reading with her.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
welcome.
Do you do it
Just
over the phone?
Oh yeah. Zoom. So you get like a recording of it afterwards, so you can
There you
refer
go.
back to.
Give her a shout.
Give Laurel a shout.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
Yes.
you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
All right.
All right.
See you on the next cast.
Bye.
Bye.